My whole life, all I cared about was playing basketball and having fun with my teammates. But just because of my dad was a professor. He cared about education a lot. So he always pushed me to become a better person. And he even said like he wants me to be a good student before becoming a good basketball player. This was just literally God's work because while I was comfortably playing basketball in NBA, there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, innocent people, are getting tortured and they put them in prison for no reason. In America, our First Amendment is freedom of speech, and that's what I wanted the most for my country. Just because of you're a journalist, just because of you're a streamer, just because of you are a social media influencer, and you talk about the problems that are happening in Turkey, you shouldn't be in jail. You know, their job is to write, to speak, to talk. So for that reason, I was like, I have a platform and I wanted to use it.
Enes Kanter Freedom, welcome to Real Talk with Zuby. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
No doubt, man. It's a pleasure. I feel like this conversation is long overdue. Enes, I know who you are. I know a little bit about your story, but for my listeners who are not familiar, please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Enes Kanter. I just became a U.S. citizen a few years ago, and after I became a citizen, I changed my last name to Freedom, made Kanter my middle name. Born in Switzerland, grew up in Turkey, came to America in 2009. The reason I came here was, play basketball and get my education at the same time. I went to University of Kentucky actually, and then I got drafted in 2011 by Utah Jazz. I played 11 years basketball in NBA, and for some of the things that I talked about, fortunately, my career came to an end. I mean, for the last few years, I can call myself probably a full time activist.
Yeah, that's the very quick version there because so much has transpired. But what is the reason why you are no longer playing in the NBA?
Well, I've been talking about the problems that are happening in my home country, Turkey, for the last, I will say, 12 years. And, just because of the things that I talked about, my family was affected by it. But then I realized that the human rights violations are not only happening in my home country, Turkey, but all around the world. And I want to stand up for the innocent people in China, not only Muslims over there, not only Uyghurs, but Tibetans, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese people, Mongolians, Falun Gongs, and just because of NBA had billions of dollars business with China, unfortunately, my career had to stop because of they were losing millions of dollars. So for that reason, I haven't played, any kind of competition NBA for the last since actually 2000 early 22.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that experience. I know you're giving me the brief version here, but I'm really curious to dive more into exactly what happened there.
I'll start with Turkey actually because that's I think that the listeners will understand better why I all of a sudden threw away millions of dollars and actually an MBA career. So um, in Turkey, things are things are actually getting rough and rough every day. There are lots of human rights violations, political prisoners, and unfortunately, there is no freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and that is breaking my heart because I mean I love my country. So I remember, back in 2013, there was a huge corruption scandal happened in Turkey. President Erdogan and some of his family members were involved in it. And after he got caught, he was going around and putting innocent people in jail. He was putting, journalists, persecutors. He was putting, he was shutting down media outlets. And that was actually the first time I said something because I was like, I don't care who you are, but if you are fighting against free media, I'm going to say something. So I put a simple tweet out there, and just because of the NBA platform, it became a huge conversation in Turkey and United States. And after that, I was like, even if one simple tweet can affect this much from now on, I'm going to pay attention and study about what's going on in my country more and more. So I started to speak up, and obviously because of the NBA platform, it was becoming um, a conversation all the time. So that really bothered the Turkish government. They sent me a lot of warnings, but I was like, you know what? I'm not getting into politics. This is pure human rights. So first, they fired my dad from his job. And then after that, like my sister, she went to medical school for 6 years and she still cannot find a job till this day. I think the saddest one was my little brother because he wanted to be like his big brother, play basketball in NBA, but unfortunately, he was getting kicked out on every team because of the same last name. So they were getting affected so much they had to put a statement out there and said we are disowning Enes publicly.
So was that happening? Your younger brother, he was in Turkey at the time. Is that right? Everyone else was in Turkey.
So my brother was in Turkey. My brother, my sister, and my father was in. They're still in Turkey actually. So they put a statement out there and say we are disowning Enes. And the Turkish government didn't believe that. They sent police to my house in Turkey and they raided the whole house and they took every electronics away, phones, computers, laptop, iPads, because they wanted to see if I am still in contact with my family or not. They couldn't find no evidence, but they still took my dad in jail for a while. But we put so much pressure from here, America, to Turkey with politicians, media, think tanks. They had to let him go. Um, and then after that, they revoked my passport. They actually tried to kidnap me in a foreign country. Just recently, it was like a little over a year ago. They put a bounty on my head. You know, so I can now only travel to 29 countries in the world. If I travel anywhere else, because of they put my name on Interpol list, that country has to deport me back to Turkey. So it's been a very difficult road, man, for sure.
That's crazy, man. There's so much to get into here. So my first question as it pertains to this is what was the statement that you put out there? And more importantly, why did you feel it's so important to speak out in the way that you did?
So my whole life, all I cared about was playing basketball and having fun with my teammates. I didn't know anything better. But just because of my dad was a professor. Well, he was a professor. He cared about education a lot, so he always pushed me to become a better person, to become a better student, and he even said like he wants me to be a good student before becoming a good basketball player. So you know, I think it just this was just literally God's work because while I was comfortably playing basketball in NBA, I was like, there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, innocent people are getting tortured and they put they put them in prison for no reason. So also like obviously in America our First Amendment is freedom of speech, and that's what I wanted the most for my country. Just because of you're a journalist, just because of you're a streamer, just because of you are a social media influencer, and you talk about the problems that are happening in Turkey, you shouldn't be in jail. You know, their job is to write, to speak, to talk. So for that reason, I was like, I mean, I understand you're the president of a country, but I have a platform and I wanted to use it. And actually, after I started to speak up, many people said, well, the athletes shouldn't get into politics, you know. But this was not politics. This was pure human rights, and human rights is above politics. So, um, I mean, for that reason, I mean, he was shutting down media outlets and putting innocent journalists in jail. And I was like, you know what? I think this is my time to speak up.
And you did. Were you surprised by the level of response?
I did. A lot of people respect it, obviously. And back then, I think there was only like three Turkish players was in NBA. So everything that we do we say, or we react, it becomes a huge conversation in Turkey. And two of them wasn't really talking about these problems because they have a lot of investments in Turkey, and they wanted to play a national team over there. But I was like, you know what? This is bigger than basketball. So, and I mean, I think that if you're an activist, the hardest thing an activist go through what his families has to go through. I mean, I was fine in the United States, but they put my dad in jail, and my sister can't even find a job. My brother was playing basketball and he was getting kicked out in every team, and back then he was what, 11, 12 years old. So I couldn't explain him why, and he was even actually asking me like, I'm the tallest one in my team, like why do they keep getting me kicked out of a team? It was very hard for me to explain it, um, but someone had to do it because obviously this was bigger than a national team invite or an investment in Turkey or anything that they can offer me.
Yeah. And so it went beyond that. I mean, I know that you also have spoken out very publicly about the situation that's been going on in China. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So for the last 10, 11, 12 years, I was focusing um, the situation or the human rights violations happening in Turkey. We've been trying to bring in my family here for a very long time, but unfortunately they're not letting them go. So I couldn't really focus on any other, I guess, dictatorship, because my plate was full all the time, and I was like trying to bring my family here. One day I remember I was doing a basketball camp in New York with Hakeem Jeffries, one of the congressmen. And I was doing a basketball camp. Right after the basketball camp, I was taking pictures with the kids one by one. And while I was taking a picture, this one kid, his parents, called me out in front of everybody. He said, how can you call yourself a human rights activist when your Muslim brothers and sisters are getting tortured and raped every day in concentration camp in China? And I'm still smiling for the camera, and I'm shocked because everybody's there. The media, the congressmen, kids, parents, everybody. I didn't know what to say. I took a picture, and I turned around to that parent, and I was like, I promise I'm going to get back to you. So that day, I canceled everything. I went back to my hotel. Um, I started to study about what's happened over there. I found out that there are what 2 3 million Uyghurs on a concentration camp getting tortured every day. Not only that, but Tibetans, Hong Kongers. Um, so I started to study because I didn't want to just speak up. I didn't want to just put a tweet out there this time. I really wanted to do my research and get educated. So I called my manager. I was like, listen, I know this is going to sound very odd, but I need you to find me a concentration camp survivor. You know, um, so he found me one. It was a lady. Um, we sit down. We had this 1 hour conversation, and she told me about you know all the concentration camps over there. She told me about the forced sterilization and abortion. She was telling me about all the torture methods. She was telling me about the gang raping over there, right? And I was like, "There's no way. I cannot believe it. Why have I not heard from this about this before?" Because they said, "Well, they control they control everything." So after that, I decided I at the end of our conversation I asked her, I was like, you know what, whatever disgusts me, you got me. What can I do to help you? She was like, I'm good. I was like, what do you mean I'm good? He's like, she was like, I live in America. I live a pretty comfortable life in this country. Help the 2 3 million Uyghurs over there who's getting tortured and raped every day in concentration camps. um, I wanted to do it in a very unique way. Obviously I could have put a tweet out there, I could have done an interview, or I could have just talk about on a stream or whatever. But I wanted to inspire millions of sport fans out there, especially the young generation. So I remember I grew up as a Lakers fan, right? Um, Whenever I watched an NBA game, the first thing I was looking at was the shoes. What brand is it? What color? If it's comfortable. And the next day, I was waking up and telling my dad, please buy those shoes for me. Everyone in the world loves shoes. So I came up with this idea. I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to these artists around the world who's been oppressed by their government. And I'm going to ask them to put all the struggles or whatever they've been gone through on the shoes as an art. And I'm going to wear those shoes, go out there and play basketball. NBA has actually was very supportive before, because I remember during COVID years, they took us to this NBA bubble. And it was all about social justice, and all the players was putting on their shoes Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor, I Can't Breathe, and all that stuff. And even NBA, Adam Silver, the commissioner, said, we don't care about basketball. We care about you guys talking about the problems that are happening in America. So 3 years later, I was like, fine, there is no rule against it. If they can put Black Lives Matter on their shoes, I can put, I should be allowed to put free Uyghurs, free Tibet, free Hong Kong, right? So I I was playing for the Celtics, and our first game was against New York Knicks, obviously our biggest rivalry, and it was on Madison Square Garden, opening night for them, and every celebrity you can think of was at that game. It was nationally televised. So I was like, this is a perfect time to do it. I put my first shoes was free Tibet. I put the shoes on and I went out there. I started to warm up. A minute before the game, there was two gentlemen who was from the NBA, was working for the Celtics, came up to me and said, "You gotta take your shoes off." I was like, "Excuse me?" They said, "Your shoes has been getting so much attention internationally. You gotta take them off." Obviously, it was from China. I was like, "The game hasn't started yet. We are on the 1 minute huddle." He said, I was like, I don't. I think it was the perfect moment for me because I was just getting ready for my citizenship test. So I closed my eyes. I was like, okay, in America, we have 27 amendments. And our first amendment, freedom of speech, I turned around. I was like, no, I'm not taking them off. I was like, go tell your boss, even if I get fined, I'm not going to take it off. They said, we are not talking about a fine. We're talking about getting banned. So they were literally threatening me to get banned from the NBA because of my shoes. Um, that first half, I played 0 minutes. I went back to my locker room and I looked at the text messages and notifications. I had thousands of them. I clicked on the one that my manager sent me. He said, every Boston Celtics game is banned in China.
Wow.
So it took 24 minutes for China to ban every Celtics game on television. And obviously, Celtics was maybe the second after the Lakers, the second biggest team in China. So everyone is watching that. I went back. For the second half, I went out there. That game, I played 0 minutes, which I played every game before that, every game. And after the game, every media outlet in almost every country wanted to hear me why I did that. Even from the most randomest country, we had a interview request. I told my manager cancel everything because I didn't want my teammates to think that I'm doing this for attention. After the first game, we lost the game, by the way. Um, After the first game, the NBA called me. NBPA called me, the Player Association, in which I pay thousands of dollars every month to protect my rights against the NBA. They said, you cannot wear those shoes ever again. I was like, am I breaking any rules? They said, no, but you know exactly what you did. Don't wear them ever again. They pressured me so much. I was like, I promise you guys, I am not going to wear free Tibet shoes ever again. They said, promise? I said, promise. I hang up the phone. So for the second game, I wore free Uyghur shoes. So they called me after the game. They said, you're a liar. You lied to us. I was like, I never lied to you. I never said I'm not going to wear free Uyghur shoes. I just said I'm just not going to wear free Tibet shoes. So they realize that they're not going to be able to make me apologize or say I wasn't educated enough or anything like that. So, yeah, that pretty much happened.
Man, so what came next?
So, third game, our third game was against Charlotte Hornets. And who owns Charlotte Hornets? Michael Jordan. So, I wanted to do something so crazy that every basketball fan is going to hear about it. So obviously, everyone loves his shoes, and his shoes is probably the best sports shoes that I've ever probably ever created and stuff. So I was like, I am going to wear his shoes and put made with slave labor on it, and go out there and play basketball in front of him. And once I put the shoes in a locker room on my feet, and all my teammates said, you are crazy. This is going to be everywhere. Are you sure you want to do this? I was like, you know what? I want to do it. Because especially Nike, there are many companies and organizations in America, but especially Nike, I believe is one of the biggest hypocritical company in America. Because in America, they stand with, Latino community, no Asian hate, Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ community, but everybody knows about the sweatshops in China. So I was like, I'm just gonna put made with slave labor and hypocrite Nike on my shoes and go out there and play basketball. So, and Michael Jordan was at that game, and I played a game, and after the game, many of my teammates walk up to me and said, have fun. This is your last year playing basketball because you're not going to be able to dribble a basketball on NBA ever again. I was like, why? We have our First Amendment is freedom of speech. And I thought that NBA was standing for social justice, not only in America, but around the world. What happened is that they said, if you criticize NBA, if you criticize China, and especially Nike, you will be out of the league. So February came, I pretty much got, traded to Houston Rockets, and they released me less than 3 minutes. And that was the last time I saw an NBA basketball court. Um, after the after I got kicked out, we did a little research. Me and my team, we found out that more people watch NBA games in China than American population last year. Every year, the relationship or business relationship between the NBA and China is around $6 billion with the B. And once they stopped showing the Celtics game, NBA started to lose millions of dollars. So that cost NBA so much money. Um, and since then, 2022 February, I am pretty much unemployed because of the things that I talk about. Later on, the ESPN did a whole investigation and found out 40 NBA owners got tied up around $10 billion in China. I was like, well, that clearly explains why I am not in the league. Um, but you know what? I don't regret it. My agent called me after the third game, that Michael Jordan game, and said, listen, man, I work for you. I don't work for the NBA, so I got to be honest with you. If you say another word, you are done. You're 29 years old. You can play another. Um, you're 29 years old. You can play another 6 years, and you're not only throwing away your career, but you're throwing away between 40 to 50 million dollars. So if you're okay with it, keep doing what you're doing. I hang up the phone and never talk to them again. Because while we are comfortably playing basketball in America, on the other side of the world, they're losing their lives, they're losing their homes, and they're losing their loved ones. Someone had to stand up for those people. So,
Wow. There is man, there's a lot there. I've got so many questions in my mind that I want to ask you. I guess the first one is, what was your goal with making those statements with the shoes, and do you feel that you accomplished it?
so obviously, bringing awareness is important, but without an action, you're only bringing awareness. So we put this bill out there in America. It's called Uyghur Force Prevention Act. And if you are a company and you have anything to do with the slave labor, you're not allowed to step into America. So it passed Congress, it passed Senate, and President signed it. So even this particular bill itself is going to cost billions of dollars to these companies. Already, I'm hearing that many companies that has something to do with slave labor already started to move out East Turkestan, or people call it Xinjiang, you know, to Vietnam, to Indonesia. So even just this one specific bill is going to cost billions of dollars and going to save so many people out there. Because I mean, everybody can actually research on internet. Right now, there are kids age of between 10 to 16 working 16 hours a day, 6 times a week, just trying to make your shoes, trying to make your sportswear, trying to make the things that you use daily. Um, many many people said, "Well, I am not an activist, or I don't have an MBA platform. What do I do?" It's literally very simple. It all starts with, if you're going to pick up an item and it says made in China, put it down. That literally the least you can do. So many people are asking me, was it worth it? Do I regret anything? Um, no, I don't, because, like I said again, this is bigger than basketball, bigger than NBA, and bigger than anything that I could ever ask for. You are changing lives, touching hearts, and you are becoming their voice. Um, when I talk about the problems that are happening in China, it was the perfect moment, because it happened right before the Beijing Olympics, the Winter Olympics. So I forget about my teammates. I try to reach out to everybody: NHL, MLB, MLS, NFL. Forget about America. I try to reach out to Olympians, and I was like, listen, do not become part of their propaganda. You know, join me. We'll create this movement, and we'll talk about no politics. We'll talk about the human rights violations, including my teammates. They said, listen, man, we love you, we support you, we care about you. I think what you're doing is so brave, so inspirational, but we cannot join you in person. I was like, why? They said, well, we have shoe deals, we have endorsement deals, we want to get another contract. We know what's going to happen to you. I asked them one simple question. I was like, put yourself in their shoes. If your mother, if your sister, if your daughter was in those concentration camps, getting tortured and raped every day, would you still pick money, business over your morals, values, and principles? They cannot answer that question. They usually turn around and leave the locker room. And that breaks my heart, because my teammates are like my brothers. And it's not that I wanted to educate them, because they already know what's happening over there. They already know about the sweatshops and slave laborers, but they care so much about the money in business, and I mean, unfortunately, they didn't want to join.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I can see it from so many different angles. I mean, what's on my mind is right now is a question of, is it necessarily the responsibility of NBA players or sports players or celebrities? Almost like who's I can totally understand, there's I believe that everybody should care about human rights. Just as a human being on this earth, if you're an adult, regardless of where you live, there's some degree of concern and care you should have about human rights and things that are happening around the world. At the same time, in this crazy world of 8 billion people, there is so much good and there's so much bad, and there's 200 countries, and every single country has its underside and bad things that are going on. So almost like where is that line of expectation and responsibility drawn? Because I can totally understand how someone, they don't even have to be an athlete, they don't even need to be famous, they could just be somebody who works at a company or they're an entrepreneur or so on, and they're not necessarily an activist, and someone could be like, hey, what about this issue, what about this? I mean, we you can go forever, there's always things that are going on. And I think most people's default position is kind of like, I mean, that sucks. That's bad. But what am I supposed to do about it? Is it even my place to speak on it? Because most people don't consider themselves activists per se. Most people have like one or two issues that, for whatever reason, they're particularly passionate about. We're seeing it right now. Some people are very passionate about Russia, Ukraine. Some people are very passionate about Israel, Palestine. Some people are very passionate about, what's happening in North Korea. Some people are passionate about be it Black Lives Matter, and some people don't even care to look outside of their home nation. And there's an argument that, well, if it's not happening here in the USA, um, you know, what's my role and responsibility there? So, what are your thoughts on that?
No, exactly. I mean, like I said again, you don't have to be an activist to speak up about these issues. And I mean, I keep talking about athletes a lot because I mean, obviously, I'm an athlete, but athletes are plays I feel like a very important role in our society because you have a huge platform and you can literally you are literally becoming an educator because with all the social media and everything, there are millions of sport fans out there watching you, idolizing you, and want to be like you. And I noticed this, that whenever I was organizing a basketball camp around the world, all the kids after the basketball camp, obviously we play basketball, and after the camp we sit down and we do questions and answers. And many of these kids used to ask me, okay, who's the GOAT? Who is better, Lakers or the Celtics, or who's gonna win a championship? Who's the best player you play with? But then I see they started to ask me, okay, tell us what's happening in the Middle East. Tell us what's happening in China. And these kids are like what 10, 11, 12 years old kids, but they follow social media religiously and they know everything about any player. And I was like, well, this is actually working. What I'm doing is working. But like I said again, man, I mean, have a cause and research and care about it. I think our world is so divided right now, and we have so many problems are happening in our world. I think that the one thing that is going to cure everything is empathy. Um, I feel like we're not having enough empathy in our heart because, like I said again, while I was comfortable playing basketball in America and making so much money, on the other side of the world people can't even find clean water to drink, or they can't even find food to eat. So that's why it is important for everyone to put themselves in other people's shoes. Um, so I think for that reason it was very important for me it was very important for me to speak up and to be the voice of all those innocent people out there. But like I said again, man, you don't have to have millions of followers. You don't have to have a platform. Just the change starts with you and with your family first. Try to inspire your family, your neighbors, and your street, and go and try to go beyond that.
Do you think that all athletes or maybe public figures have a type of responsibility to speak out about injustices in the world?
I mean, I think so. If you feel ready, if you are educated about it, um, I think so because, like I said again, man, when I was growing up, I grew up as a Kobe Bryant fan, and I was following him um, almost every day, and I used to wake up like 3 4 a.m. back in Turkey, and I was watching his game and try to hide it from my mom because I had to go to school the next day. So. Um, so I think all the athletes, not only athletes, celebrities, influencers, or whoever you are, I do believe that yes, we have, because if we can educate our young generation, we're going to have a better and brighter future. I just don't want them to sit down in front of a phone or a computer or a laptop and watch TikTok all day, or play video games all day. I feel like we have an important duty, and that duty is to make this world better together. And that's what I'm actually trying to do with basketball camps that I organize around the world. I think the sport, especially, is an amazing tool to bring people together. The Pope just passed away, yesterday, and I remember that. I mean, as a Muslim, he inspired me, and because of him, I organized a basketball camp around Vatican City, and we brought Christians, Muslims, Jewish kids, Catholic kids, blacks, whites, whoever they are. We came in and we played basketball together, and I put them on the same team, and they had so much fun. I mean, as you see what's happening in Middle East right now, you know, um, same with Middle East. I actually organized a basketball camp in Jerusalem, and we brought Israelis and Palestinians together. And I remember first, they were so hesitant to even shake each other's hand. They were so not scared, but they were just so worried that because they didn't know the other side. Um, and literally in 2 weeks, um, they started to communicate, they started to talk, they started to have jokes. And end of our basketball camp, they were exchanging numbers, they were started to follow each other on social media, and it was such a beautiful scene. And I put these kids on the same basketball team, and they were not even passing the ball to each other, you know. But then at the end of the basketball camp, they were high fiving each other, and they were just trying to communicate because if they don't, it's a team sport. You're gonna lose the game. You know, I see these Israeli kids becoming best friend with this Palestinian girl. It was the most emotional and perfect basketball scene I've ever seen in my life. So I think what we need to do is just, instead of building walls, we need to knock down all the walls and start building bridges between people, because it doesn't matter what your background is, your skin color, your religion, your ethnicity, or whoever you are. We need to leave our differences on the table and trying to find what we have in common, because we only have one world to live. So we need to make this world better together, and I think that that's the key word: together.
I hear that. Man, I have so many thoughts in my mind right now. I'm curious to know what role does your faith play in this?
A lot, obviously. First of all, what breaks my heart is whenever I go on the internet, and because of extreme people, because of extreme minded people, my faith, Islam, gets lots of criticism, right? But I am Muslim as well, and my I think the most important thing our world needs right now, other than empathy, is dialogue. You know, um, so that's why, I mean, when I was playing basketball in that locker room, we had people from, we had Christians, We had Jewish coaches. We have, you know, some people believed in God, some people didn't believe in God. We had so many people. But I think that the one thing that we always did was we always respect each other. We asked obviously a lot of questions, but my faith tells me to bring peace in this world, to stand up for innocent people, to to love the others, love your neighbors. I think that is literally in every religion. Um, so my faith definitely plays an important role. And obviously on internet or social media there are a lot of criticism about Islam, but I think this is the true Islam. The true Islam is dialogue. True Islam is empathy. True Islam is love. True Islam is peace. um, so that's my religion, taught me to be the voice of all those innocent people out there who don't have a voice.
Why do you think that it is? I know we've sort of touched on it and walked around it a little bit, but this situation that's been going on in China with the Uyghurs, what exactly, well, first of all, what exactly, I mean, you might not be able to be precise. So what is happening there? Because over the years, I've read stuff online about it. Once in a while, I hear it brought up. It's not an issue that gets a lot of coverage. It doesn't matter which part of the world I'm in. I don't hear a lot about it. I don't see much of it in the media. Even on social media, outside of a very small number of people, I don't really see it talked about. But then I go online and you look in articles, even the Wikipedia article and whatever you're seeing, and it sounds like this is the scale of it sounds enormous. At the same time, the information seems very blurry. It's difficult to get direct and clear and up to date information on what's going on. Some people say, oh, 500,000 people. Some say 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Even just getting the number of people who are in these situations seems to be very difficult. So, what is the latest that you're able to ascertain and share of what is actually happening there?
So there are a few reasons. I think that one of the most important one is, I think the number one is people are scared. And not only people but countries are scared. The leaders are scared of China. Is because a Muslim leader knows, or a Muslim president knows, that as soon as they talk about the human rights violations in China, China can China can literally destroy him economically. Like you see all the Muslim leaders out there, right? Talks about the problems that are happening in Palestine, but you don't see one Muslim leader that talks about the problems that are happening in China. There's a big reason for it. It's all because of economic issues, because they know that China will destroy them economically. So for that reason, no Muslim leaders will stand up for the innocent people over there in China. So what's happened over there right now? There are, I believe, close to 2 million people in concentration camps just because of their faith. Um, and not only Uyghurs, but I mean, obviously, I grew up as a huge the Dalai Lama fan, and what's happening towards Tibetans is a cultural genocide. Same with Hong Kongers. I mean, you see how China is now trying to take over Hong Kong. Same with Taiwan. China has been threatening to take over Taiwan for the last like many years, and Taiwan is its own country, but China wants to invade, and America has a promise to Taiwan. If China is ever to attack Taiwan, America has to protect it. So that might lead us to a huge war, you know? Um, what breaks my heart is we have so much influencers out there, so many athletes, so many celebrities, so many leaders, Muslim leaders, or Muslim sheikhs. When it comes to every other issue, they're very outspoken about it. But there's one specific country or a dictatorship, I will say, is that they cannot talk about it because they know as soon as they do talk about it, that person is never going to get a contract, or that person is never going to get endorsement deals, or that person is their country will be destroyed economically. So I was like, someone has to do it. Someone has to go out there and literally just expose all the hypocrisy in the world. Because even in America, we keep talking about our freedom in this country, in America, but if you see, China controls a lot of stuff here. The reason that you don't see lots of news about the problems that are happening over there in China is because of they control the big tech. So they control academias, big tech, Wall Street, Hollywood, sports leagues, even some people in Congress and local Congresses. You know, so for that reason, unfortunately, you're not going to see lots of news about it because they're all controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Um, I think like the biggest threat right now, especially our youth, is TikTok. Now they are trying to force sell it to an American company here in America, but there's a lot of propagandas happening over there, and obviously it's that app is literally banned. And if you're working for a government, if you're a congressman, senator, or if you are their scheduler, you're not allowed to download TikTok on your phone. So everybody knows it's a spy app. But unfortunately, the people has to be more brave and come out and speak up. And the only thing I'm very like embarrassed and shame about it is all the Muslim leaders out there. Unfortunately, none of them have a courage to stand up to innocent people over there. And obviously, standing up. I'm not saying don't stand up for Palestine or anything. That's another tragedy. But I mean, when it comes to China, unfortunately, no one is standing up.
Yeah. Why is the CCP doing what they're doing there? Because that's something I've I don't really understand. I don't know enough about the history to even understand. So when you say there's up to 2 million people in concentration camps, I mean, why? What's the reason? What are they trying to do?
Yeah, so that area, East Turkestan, or people knows it as Xinjiang area, is populated with millions of Muslims, and China wants to use that region to open up to Europe. So for that reason, they really want to control that region, and um, if you are one of the worst leader, worst dictatorship in our time, um, you don't want no God in the country. You don't want no any kind of faith in the country. You want your faith, you want your God to be the country. So for that reason, if you are a practicing Muslim or Christian, Catholic, Jewish, you don't want that in your country, you know. And so that's why that is the reason that right now they are going around the world and demolishing all the mosques over there, you know. And actually this is on internet. Sometimes whenever I talk about these things, that people think that I'm exaggerating, but you can literally go on internet and find out all this stuff that I'm talking about. The recently they even said we would like to change Quran, the holy book of Quran.
Sorry, who said that? You mean the Chinese government?
The Chinese government, the Chinese government. So they're the Chinese Communist Party is a control freak. They want to be able to control everything. That's why you see there are a lot of surveillance cameras all over the country, especially in East Turkestan. Um, and it's sad because I mean we are living in like what century, and people can't even um, live freely. So um, we gotta do what we can to bring awareness and help people over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You said that a lot of people don't speak because of fear. I actually think on this particular issue, I don't think most people know about it. Even for the years it's going on and the information that is on the internet, with this particular issue, I would be surprised if I don't know, I'd be surprised if more than 30% of the American population or more than
Yeah,
30% of the British population even
probably
knew.
less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably less. But well, it's because they control big tech. You know, They ban. Actually, it's very funny. I had a second phone and I downloaded TikTok and I wanted to use their weapon against them, and then I started to put all the human rights violations that happened in China. Literally in 1 week, they
Oh, yeah.
banned me. So it's we need brave people to come out and speak up and educate our youth. And obviously we have a lot of problems that happen in America as well. But we need to let the youth know they care about the others. And I do feel like we should feel lucky to live in a country like America because when I look at out there, countries like Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, or Turkey, or many other countries, you know, forget about criticizing those governments. You say anything against those governments that they don't like, you and your family members will be tortured in jails. So I do feel very lucky in this country, America, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what do you I often wonder with these types of issues, how do you actually resolve them? So, of course, there are billions of people who are out there. There are billions of people on social media. There are thousands of people who are in positions of leadership in government, state level, city level, national level. And I just sometimes wonder, so let's say even if we could get this particular issue, whether it's what's happening in China or some of the violations going on in Turkey, even if it were on more people's radar, let's say it had the level of popularity as the Israel Palestine conflict or the Russia Ukraine thing, just in terms of the public knowledge, right? Everyone knows about those situations, at least on a basic level. And even with those ones, I mean, maybe those are good examples because despite the fact that over 90% of people have some awareness of these two conflicts, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years, still most people are kind of like, well, it sucks and I feel bad for the people who are experiencing this. I feel sad for the loss of human life, but like, what am I supposed to what am I supposed to do about it? How am I supposed to stop this? Yeah.
So what we ask for the people in America, actually, so I think bringing awareness is the most important thing. It's a start. It's an amazing start. But then after that, we ask people to put pressure on their local government or even federal government to put pressure on them to take actions. Bringing awareness is amazing, is very important, but I think like I said again before, like without an action, it means nothing. So what we do here in America is we try to put pressure on our congressmen, senators, even the White House, State Department, to start taking actions, maybe sanctions on people. Like when the Ukraine and Russia conflict well, it's still happening. We had a lot of conversation with local and federal, you know, government leaders, and said tweeting about it is not enough, or giving an interview is not enough. It's not helping people over there. It's good, it's bringing awareness, but we want action. So we have this thing called Magnitsky actions. That is actually my friend Bill Broder created it. We are asking America or Canada or some of these, European countries and European Union to sanction individuals in Russia, all the oligarchs, and that puts a lot of pressure and freezes a lot of assets to all the oligarchs that are close to Putin, say, you know. So right now, I would like to do the same thing with Turkey. I would like to do the same thing with China and other countries. And obviously, this is a very long process. But I think, putting pressure on your government leaders or your local government leaders or whatever, it's a start. Um, and I think that the bigger than that, I think bringing awareness and raising generations that are not afraid to stand up for what's right is the most important thing to me. You know, um, I think once. they get to in our age. I want them to make decisions, and that I want those decisions to not to be affected by any kind of power, business, or money that they can throw front of them, front of them. So for that reason, I'm like raising generations that is bold, that is not afraid, that is brave, is the first step, and then after that, putting pressure on our government, um, lawmakers to to take actions to all the human atrocities around the world.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make because I'm wondering, I'm kind of comparing it a bit to something you said earlier, which was about not getting involved in politics, but obviously that is political. If you're talking about sanctions, if you're talking about going to officials and campaigning or rallying them to get involved, not even just at home, but with foreign affairs, I also think that that's a level where a lot of people are like, well, I can totally understand somebody who's an American citizen and America has all of its problems, and then it's like, gosh, now someone wants me to go and fight for people in North Korea and in Ukraine and in Palestine and in here and in there. And again, there are many more conflicts that are going on than these
Right.
handful that we've mentioned. So I do also understand and I can empathize with people who are like, hey, America first, man. Like we've got to focus on our own backyard. If this doesn't
Mhm.
directly if this isn't impacting us, how can we be trying to fix everything in all these other places when there's only limited resources, there's limited money, and in their heart they may think like, man, I would love for the whole world to experience peace and for everyone to prosper and
Right.
no child anywhere to starve or go hungry or be blown up by a bomb or whatever. But like I think that's something that leads to the parallel to the sort of to the paralysis, and I think it's also difficult now because we
Right.
have so much. You've alluded to this before, right? We have platforms, we have the internet, we have social media.
Mhm.
We're so much more connected than our ancestors ever were. Our ancestors, something could be happening hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away. They don't even know. Now, where there's so much knowledge, there's so
Right.
much information, there's so much connection, and it's weird. I think it's a double-edged sword in
Right.
some ways. In some ways I think it's good, but in other ways I'm just like, man, human beings are not we're not wired to be able to handle so much emotion and caring about so much stuff. Like you it's kind of it's
Right.
impossible to look. You're a man of faith, I'm a man of faith, almost, by command and just by who we are. We on some level care about every single one of the 8 billion people on the planet. At the same
Mhm.
time, it's sort of functionally impossible to care about 8 billion people. I mean, we don't know them. We know our friends, we know our families, we know people around them. So there's a level of empathy and sympathy, but I think also for your own sanity, there's kind of like, well, if I'm going to take on all of the burdens of the world, I'm not going to be able to function. I'm not going to be able to look after myself, look after my family, my community, my country, and
That is true.
it's a huge burden. Like I can see it from the different sides.
What I think is, I think like helping destroy this dictatorship is also America first. Because like think about this: when a conflict happens, what does America or Europe or European Union or European countries does? They send weapons, they send money, you know. So right now, because of the conflict that happened in the Middle East or whatever, America is sending billions of dollars or so many weapons to those countries, and that takes away um, so much things from America just because of the things that I'm actually dealing with constantly over and every day. Actually, sometimes you forget to take care of yourself. But I feel like this is God's work, so I'm literally trying to go out there and trying to help everyone I can, despite their religion, color, or whoever they are. So I don't know, but you're right though. I'm definitely sometimes I think like listen, let me just take a break, and just look out the window and just relax for a second, because once you are in these conversations every day, there are new people or new community that are reaching out to you and want you to be their voice. So for that reason, you are you are right. I need to maybe take a step back and say, wait a second, I need to go work out, and I need to, eat healthy. I need to sleep a little bit.
Yeah, it's certainly difficult. It's multi-layered and it's complicated. I do have a question. When did you last speak to your family? What's the situation that's going on there?
So last time I saw my family was 11 years ago, because I'm not allowed to go there because I have 12 arrest warning for me in Turkey, and they're not allowed to go outside of Turkey because their passport has been taken away, and they're being watched very closely. So, but my brother plays basketball overseas, and I communicate with my brother, and my brother communicates with my family. I mean, this situation is definitely tough for them because no jobs, um, they have no incomes, and they can't even, because of their face was on the media a lot, they can not even comfortably go out there and walk freely, because they get harassed by the people on the streets and stuff. But yeah, it's been a very long time.
Man, that's heavy. And I know that you've said you don't regret what you did per se, but considering the wider ramifications of it all, do you think if you could go back, is there anything you would do differently?
So people are keep talking about me losing my career, me losing tens of millions of dollars, but it was nothing compared to me losing my family, pretty much. I think, like I said before, the hardest thing that an activist has to go through, what his family has to go through. But I look at it this way. Obviously, my family is one of the most important things to me in this world, but my family is only one. There are thousands of family in jails, in prisons, getting tortured every day. And I'm not just saying that. There are lots of reports like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Human Rights Foundation, saying that there are so many innocent people are in jail in Turkey and getting tortured every day. So I want to be their voice too. And their situation is way worse than mine. I don't regret anything, but I definitely miss my family a lot.
And what are your goals for the future? I know that you've got a new book that's coming out. You can tell me a little bit more about that.
So the reason I came up with this idea, I was like, I need to put all my thoughts and what I have been through in a book and put it out there and try to inspire the young generation. So I came out with this book. It's called In the Name of Freedom. You can pre-order it on Amazon. The reason that book is so important to me is because of that book is not only talking about my story, but the story of millions. And not only the human rights violations happen in Turkey or China, but all around the world, and exposing all the um, hypocrite companies, organizations, and the people that who's bound down to money and business. Um, so right now it's on pre-sale on Amazon. If you put In the Name of Freedom in a search button, it will come up. But I think that book is going to bring a lot of awareness. And also, obviously, because of the basketball aspect of it, many young generation and kids is going to buy that book and read about what's more important than sports or basketball or the NBA. So no, I'm very excited about that book because it is going to expose a lot of organizations and lots of hypocritical companies out
I hear that, man. Ennis, man, you're a brave dude. You're a courageous man. Massive respect for taking the public stances that you've taken, and I'm really curious and excited to continue to follow your journey and see what you do over these next few years and over this lifetime. If there is, before we close out, if there is something that I know we've talked about this vaguely, but if there's something that people if there's something you would like people to do, or some type of call to action, or just something for them to specifically take away from this in terms of what they can do or something they should be paying more attention to, what would that be?
I think when I look at our world, we are like a big team, right? And we are in this together, and we only have one world to live. So we gotta make this world better together. And I think if I could just change one thing about us, that um, I think I would put empathy and sympathy in everyone's heart, and I would make them feel what the other side feels, and I will tell them to live for others. I think that is one thing that I will scream to the whole world, that we are all human. Um, Religion, background, culture, ethnicity, whatever you are, comes second. I think we are all human. So um, just just have some empathy and just go out there and share the message of peace and love to the whole world.
I hear that, man. Ennis, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure we will meet in person sometimes in the future. So thank you for the gift of your time.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.